welcome Hoosier fans to another victorious edition of the Assembly Call. Today, your Indiana Hoosiers beat the Troy Trojans 100-62 in a game that for about 24 minutes was really impressive for IU, and then got a little bit sloppy there down the stretch. But it was IU played with a lot of intensity to start the game, and even to start the second half. I thought the activity level was far better than what we had seen and kind of complained about after a couple of the other games. And I thought that in general, just the defensive effort, the motion on offense, a team that really came out ready to play and turned in a really strong first half, scored 58 points in the first half, came out erased. Not that there was really any doubt, but started with a really strong opening 4 minutes of the second half, and really just kind of cruised from there. Even saw Archie toward the end of the game cracking a smile and joking a little bit on the sidelines, which is pretty rare, I would say. So, but IU moves to 4-0 on the season. They continue to take care of business. In this game, they actually get Devontae Green back. He was able to play. Definitely some rust with him, as we've seen with some of the other players coming back from injury. But overall, good to see him out on the court. Of course, with this team, as has been the case lately, you can't have everybody healthy at the same time. So Rob Finney sat out the game tonight due to illness and potentially even a little banged up from the end of the game the other night. So maybe at some point this year we'll see this team at full strength, but that was not tonight. But nonetheless, IU played really well in a 100-62 victory. I'm your host, Andy Bottoms, here with Ryan Phillips, and we're going to break it all down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU postgame show. And let's start the show the way we start every show, and that is with our banner moment. And for me, the banner moment in this, I had a couple. I had one queued up, but really the way IU opened the second half, I thought was really important. We wanted to see killer instinct is probably a little bit overused, but we wanted to see IU really kind of put their foot on the throat of an opponent when they had taken an advantage over the course of the non-conference so far. And IU came out after that 58-32, I believe, halftime lead, and came out and outscored Troy 17-4 before the first media timeout in the second half. Troy missed a few threes, I think 4 to be more specific, to start the half. And IU really shared the ball well during that stretch, had a number of guys contribute. Armand Franklin made a 3. Al made a 3. Armand made another jumper. Joey Brunk even made an elbow jumper. Justin made a 3. Trayce was effective inside. Joey Brunk was effective inside. Just a really good stretch of basketball coming out of the locker room. And I thought that was important to kind of, you would have hoped maybe it carried over the performance a little bit more, but I thought it showed, good for IU to sustain that first half performance. And they played really well to start the second half. Again, put a little bit more separation against them and really never looked back. At that media timeout, it was 75-36, and IU pretty much cruised from there. So for me, being able to do that and that really, seemed to be positive for IU. Thought they got off to a good start, and like I said, kind of cruised from there. So our banner moment tonight, as always, is brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel, which was founded by an IU grad and remains based in Indianapolis. If you haven't been paying attention to what's been going on over at Home Field Apparel, you really need to go to their website, homefieldapparel.com, as soon as you can to check it out. Home Field still has the incredibly comfortable Bison logo hoodie, which I wore to take in this IU victory tonight, which is made out of their soft tri-blend material. In addition to the Bison hoodie and the IU Basketball Champions t-shirt and the vintage sneakers design, Home Field has also been releasing an IU football-inspired design each week during the football season. Feel free to tempt fate by getting the 9 Windiana shirt, which now has serious potential to be called the greatest called shot in sports apparel history, or consider any of their other unique vintage designs that you simply cannot find anywhere else, and certainly not a material this comfortable. Here's one final note that you need to know before you order. Because you're a member of the Assembly Call audience, you get a massive discount when you order at homefieldapparel.com. Use the promo code Assembly20 at checkout to get 20% off your entire order. That's Assembly20 for 20% off your order. Go to homefieldapparel.com today and get the most unique and comfortable IU apparel anywhere. Now it's time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team, which tonight is Ryan Phillips. So, Ryan, what is your rant for this evening? Is it about the Big Ten officiating from the football game earlier today, or would you like to keep the rant basketball-centric?
I'm just going to stick with basketball. I just thought it was this was probably the most complete performance we've seen from IU yet this year, but I think that it's also just – you saw guys look engaged from the get-go, and you didn't see a drop-off as the game went on. I think late, maybe last 10 minutes of the second half was a little ragged just because that happens in a huge blow. You get up 40 and nobody's focusing the way they did earlier. But I thought we saw in that last 10 minutes, you saw some fits and starts of really focused play and smart play. But it was almost like a pickup game in the last 10 minutes. But that's what happens when you get a 40-point blowout. What I will say is that it was really encouraging just seeing again for, the fourth straight time, just seeing them pound the rock inside and really take advantage of their size and length on the interior on both ends of the court, really, but also to see what's emerging as a great duo on the interior, which is Trayce Jackson-Davis and Race Thompson. I think it's becoming increasingly clear that's their best front court duo. And we talked about the duos and possibly matching big guys early in the year. And maybe would you see Brunk and Jerome Davis? That's like an afterthought at this point. It's going to be Trayce and Race Thompson are your best two guys, I think, on the interior. And especially because both can step out on the floor and handle themselves on the floor on offense and on defense. They can pass the ball. They can dribble. They can move the ball around. They could, even they have the confidence to take jump shots. And that's just something that Indiana hasn't had, that really versatile big man. In the last couple of years, you had Juwan Morgan last year, but because of depth issues and because of injuries, he essentially had to play as a center and wasn't allowed to really roam as much as he probably thought that he could. And I just think it's interesting to see that we have two guys in Thompson and Jackson-Davis who can score, can rebound like crazy, can block shots, play defense, have energy, and can step out on the floor a little bit. I mean, they're not going to sit there and be knocked down 3-point shooters, but they have the versatility and athleticism to step away from the basket. On both ends of the floor, you've seen them both switch on to guards at times and hold their own. That's obviously not something you're going to want to see all game from them, but it's really that ability to help the defense out in multiple ways and help the offense out in multiple ways. So I thought that was really just became increasingly clear today that those two guys are going to be the best post duo that Indiana has. And then you saw Justin Smith really bounce back with a better performance after a really bad one in the last game. So really saw him be confident and in his shot and be confident with his driving ability, all of that. So I felt like it was a really nice showing from the front court and picking up the backcourt because Rob Finney's out. So I would say, that's a positive and I'm really excited about what we saw.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned them because I actually had a play that the two of them made as one of the banner moments in the first half. There was a stretch where they came out, I think between the two of them, they scored 8-ish points in a row, I want to say, right around the time. And it coincided with the time that, we were texting about how well those two were playing together. And yeah, there was a stretch where for over 4 possessions, the two of them combined to score, 8 points in a row. And one of those was a really nice feed from Race to Trayce as he came down the lane and finished. And, I do think
they're both just smart players too. They find each other and they just have good court awareness too. It's great to see.
Yeah, I thought in general, just the interior passing was really good. A lot of the big guys made some really nice passes out of the post. Duran had a few. I think Joey Brunk even had a pass where he threw across to Armand. I think there were just a number of those kinds of plays. But I do think, as we talked about that, you're trying to look ahead to if and when this team is ever back to full strength from a lineup standpoint, what does that lineup look like? And I think if you wanted to play smaller and play guys like Trayce and Race together, or either one of those guys and Justin Smith, I think you can certainly make an argument that those have been the lineups where IU's been most effective this year in the way that those two guys play together and, the way they complement each other. And they made a comment on the broadcast toward the end about how I think Archie had mentioned that, Justin Smith and Jerome Hunter had, kind of sharpened one another because they're similar in some ways and kind of making each other in practice. I think you could probably, if you're a fly on the wall in practice, assume the same thing about Race and Trayce because they play, they play so well together and complement each other well defensively. But I guess that's a good segue to Trayce. I mean, he ended up 17 points, 14 rebounds, actually missed 4 free throws, which was surprising given how well he shot the ball from there.
And he missed 3 in a row, so it was clearly something was just off with his stroke for like 3 in a row. And then he figured, I'm not. It's not something I'm worried about. And it really knocked down the team percentage too. And so I was kind of like, "Oh, Trayce, what are you doing?"
I know exactly what it was. My daughter was sitting next to me on the couch, and he made the first one. And she goes, "He never misses free throws," and then he missed the next 3. So Mallory's on.
Mallory, okay,
yeah,
well,
she's in deep trouble, but
serious.
I'd like that she recognized that he was a good free throw shooter, but the jinxing of him we could have done without.
I think he may have been a little tired because he didn't flow through his release on those. He like kind of stiffened up and then fired it, and they were all 3 were line drives. So something you don't normally see from him. So I don't think it's anything to be concerned about. But yeah, he did miss those 3 in a row. It was kind of like, oh man, we've been shooting so well. Why'd you have to do that?
Yeah, I thought between he and Justin, they really set the tone early just with their activity level.
And while he didn't have any points to show for it, Race Thompson was really active early as well. He didn't have the counting stats, the rebounds and the points to show for it, but he was super active early as well. They all really jumped in early and looked really good, I thought.
Yeah, so Justin was a guy I think everybody was a little bit, I don't know, disappointed in, whatever you want to say, in that North Alabama game. And I think this was on the radio show on Thursday. I think Coach and Jared both had kind of said, yeah, maybe everybody was a little too hard on him, that he was a little bit more maybe into that game than I think people thought. He didn't score well, didn't play well. But what did you see from him tonight that was maybe different than, in looking back at that North Alabama game, different in the way that he played that allowed him to be more effective?
Well, he was just engaged. I mean, it from the get-go, it looked like he was ready to attack. And, he took a 3 early and made it. I think that really boosted him. He was taking jumpers, which we hadn't really seen. We'd seen him miss some 3s and take, a kind of a long jumper earlier in the season, but it had mostly been his attack had been mostly towards the rim. And so to see him step out and have confidence sitting both of the 3-pointers he took, he hit 4 free throws, 4 out of 4 free throws, but he was attacking at the rim, and he was working on defense to get stops and things like that. So he was engaged on both ends of the floor and on every level offensively, I felt like. And I think we were a little harsh for the Northern Alabama game, but I also think that there's just sometimes a look in his eye he gets when he's ready to attack. And I didn't see that in that game. And I thought tonight, I thought he really did. And I thought that he was looking for, offensive rebounds, which we hadn't seen in a while. And he grabbed 2 of them. And, his ability to score on offensive rebounds is really high because he's so athletic that if he gets it that close to the hoop, he's going to score. I mean, more often than not. So, 8 of 9 from the field, 22 points. He had 5 rebounds, 2 offensive. And then he also had 2 assists and he had a block. I mean, he was and 3 steals was the other thing. It's when Justin is as engaged as his teammates and as involved as his teammates, you're gonna see the positive results. And he's so athletic and so physically gifted. We've been waiting for it. We always talk about it. We've been waiting for it. And I will take 3 games of this versus 1 game of a negative performance all season. I'll take that. Because that's just a college basketball player. Some nights they have nights off. The question is, are we going to get it 50-50? Are we going to get it, 40 bad, 60% good, or 40% good, 60% bad? Are we going to, how is it going to play out? And I think that what we've seen so far has been really positive for him. His last game, okay, we'll give that that was a bad night. But I do think that he's a guy who can really be a game changer for this team if he's in attack mode and can play like he did tonight.
Yeah, one thing that Chad brought up on the radio show on Thursday, he did a great job filling in. And among the points that he made was that Justin always seems to, really play better when he can get involved early. And he makes a 3 on that first possession of the game tonight, and it was, kind of got him rolling downhill from there. But yeah, I think just overall activity level was really good from him and
on both ends,
Trayce and Race. Yeah, they were locked in defensively, which is the other thing I wanted to talk about. So there was, so much was made of how much the defense was struggling and not playing well. I thought tonight, short of, putting them on the foul line a lot, which we had another foul fest, I think 22 fouls by the under 8 timeout in the first half or something like that. But the thing that Troy came into the game doing really well was shooting the 3, and they finished the game 4 of 20 or 5 of 25 in total, including 1 of 11 in the second half. And
They ran him off the 3-point line.
Was a point of emphasis. I thought they did a nice job for the most part. They had a few bad closeouts that I felt like in the first half that I felt like Troy took advantage of basically every one of them for points in general. But you could definitely tell it was an emphasis. And again, I'd love to see the defensive numbers kind of through that first media timeout in the second half, because I felt like everything from that point forward was a little bit. I don't know what you really draw from it from anyone's perspective. But I did think overall the defensive intensity and awareness was pretty strong for the first 24-ish minutes.
And then again, as we said, you get into a 35-point blowout, that goes out the window. It just does. It doesn't matter how hard you coach him. It doesn't matter what you say in huddles. You might get a play or two that goes well, but everybody relaxes when you're up by that much on both teams, really. And it's just, you realize the game's over. Let's just get through it. And guys start going one-on-one and things like that. It's just, everything goes out the window at that point. So I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised. I'm not saddened by it. It just is the way it is. And so you're right. The defense for that first 25 minutes, great. After that, it's just, it happens.
Yeah, they had, I think at halftime, they had forced 12 turnovers and scored 19 points off of it. So that was positive. Only ended up forcing 16 turnovers for the game. But in total, Troy shot 27% from the floor, 9% from three-point range, and 52.9% from the line. So the free throw defense is back in effect. But anything else stand out from your standpoint from the defensive end, other than looking more locked in, which feels a little bit intangible, but
but there's a vibe you get. One thing I will say, defensive rebound, they wound up destroying them on the rebound count again, which is going to be a theme for this team, which I think is great in the Big Ten, is because rebounding, typically you rebound, you make your free throws. It's tough to beat you in the Big Ten. They had 51-38 in this game against North Alabama. That didn't show up very much because there were so many free throws that really the rebounding advantage didn't show very, very highly. But I will say 36 defensive rebounds. They had 15 offensive rebounds. I know we're talking about defense, but if you look at the rebounding numbers, it'd be skewed a little bit. If you don't consider that 15 offensive rebounds, that's unbelievable. And that's where you win a game, is being able to give yourself second chances. So the defense was great. The defensive rebounding was great, but that offensive rebound also took it to another level, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I thought just the overall a strong performance, a good bounce back from where they had been. And, hopefully that will continue as we move forward into the rest of the non-conference slate, which again, I don't think is going to provide a ton of challenges, but opportunities to develop good habits, which hopefully this team can do.
And get some confidence.
Exactly. All right. Well, coming up, we're going to continue our breakdown of IU's 100-62 victory over Troy. We'll point out today's meaningful moment you might have missed, and then go inside the numbers. So stick with us on the Assembly Call.
This is Jordan Halls, and I never miss a shot or an episode of the Assembly Call.
You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Andy Bottoms here with Ryan Phillips, and we are breaking down Indiana's 100-62 victory over Troy. And it's time for today's meaningful moment that you might have missed. And there were a couple that I had circled, not really in any particular area, but one I think is worth talking about, Devontae. I think it was Jared who had mentioned a bit about, what he can do defensively and how he might be able to reverse some of the trends and things like that. And for me, that started, so I really watched that when he came into the game. And the first possession that he had on defense, he had a deflection. So anybody that was really, charting deflections during the game, he got one right off the bat. But then later in that possession, had a really good challenge on a three-pointer that hit only the backboard, didn't even hit the rim. On his second possession, had nice help defense and cut off a baseline drive. And I thought in general, played, for a guy who did look rusty on the offensive end, I think didn't really have his legs a lot, did eventually knock down a couple of shots. I thought he was pretty engaged defensively and did a nice job of, putting ball pressure on the Troy guards. So I thought that was important to see. And again, I think at this point we're trying to figure out and look at, hey, what does this team look like when everybody's together? How much does it help if Al's able to slide over and guard more wing players as opposed to, primary ball handlers? And that starts with having a healthy Devontae. And I thought he did a decent job overall on the defensive end. So Ryan, anything you saw from him on the defensive end or offensively, just as he's, clearly rusty, but was able to get some good minutes and get back in the groove?
I thought it was great that towards the end of the game, he hit a 3-pointer. I thought early on, it looked pretty clear that his shot was a little short. Like he's still getting his game legs. He had a couple threes that were good shots online, but just wound up being short or, just over the rim, hit the back of the rim and came out. Stuff that should get worked out as he gets into shape. I'm not worried about that. He also, missed a free throw too that kind of went in and out. I think he just rushed a little bit, but he played 20 minutes, only turned the ball over once, which has always been a bugaboo for Devontae. So I think that's a huge positive. And the fact that IU played really well when he was in the game. I mean, he may not have hit his shots, but I felt like everybody played well. It wasn't, he wasn't trying to make it the Devontae show. And sometimes he's gotten into that habit while he's been at IU. And we've heard about a more mature Devontae Green and, all that stuff. And so tonight, I have no reason to believe anything else. He looked like he wanted to play within the system. He was playing off the ball too. Al Durham was bringing the ball up most of the night. So he was able to play off the ball, which I know he in some instances prefers and is a much better scorer out of that system. And, might be smoother when Rob Finney comes back if he's playing off the ball and Rob has the ball. So I just think that it was a positive night for Devontae as he builds up. He played 20 minutes. I was expecting him to play maybe 10, 15 just based on what we were hearing, but he played a full 20 minutes, put in a full shift. And, I liked that he was able to drive in and get a quick little jumper before the half to go in. I mean, we've seen him hit that floater before. It's sort of his go-to thing. He doesn't usually go to the rim. He prefers a floater to a layup, and he prefers a 3-pointer. And those are really the shots he takes. And to see him hit that and look comfortable doing it was a positive. And on the threes, he was 1 of 6 on the night, really lowered IU's percentage by missing 5 of them. But at the same time, I felt like most of them were in rhythm. He just rushed them a little and maybe didn't get as much lift on his legs out of his legs as he would normally if he was healthy. So positive night all around. I thought he played well defensively, as you mentioned. I thought he looked engaged and was good with his help, good with his recovery. Couple little knocks here and there where maybe he got lost, but it's his first game action, so you expect that. But all in all, really positive night, I think. Also got 4 assists, so he's looking for his teammates, which is what you want out of a guy like Devontae, as well as the scoring prowess.
Yeah, he had 4 assists, just the 1 turnover, which came,
that was big.
Yeah, came late in the game when it was pretty ragged. But I think he was emblematic of IU's, the way they excelled in transition, because he was able to get out and find guys. I thought overall good first showing from him. Certainly some things to get better, but a good starting point from him. Other guy, and I'll bring up this moment to talk about him, was Damis E Anderson. And there was a point in the first half where he just made a really smart cut through the middle of the court. I think this was right around when Troy started going to his zone, and basically hit a turnaround jumper from, I think, around the elbow. And he was, he had 12 points in 8 minutes in the first half. I'm not sure that he missed at all when he was out there. Hit a couple threes, and
he missed one early.
I guess he missed one. Yeah, he missed an early 3, but yeah, hit a couple threes. Did some work on the offensive glass. I think he ended up with a couple baskets off of his own offensive rebounds over the course of the
rebounds
night.
Too.
Yeah, I thought he played. I just thought he played really well, and I thought he moved well off the ball. Other guys did as well, and I think that was highlighted by the big guys being able to make some really nice passes. But I thought that one in particular just showed a guy who is kind of wired to score, but starting to recognize some of the openings that the way his teammates are playing are going to create for him.
I will say this about Damis E Anderson. The man does not lack for confidence. There was one time he got an offensive rebound just immediately, and he wasn't in a great position, just immediately jumped and shot it up, and it went right in. He's very confident in his ability. And look, I've been very skeptical about Damis E since they recruited him about, I'm not sure that his game translates well, like what he did scoring wise in high school translates well to college basketball, to work in a system. And his shot is not the cleanest thing. You would never teach Damis E Anderson's shot to a kid learning basketball, but there are guys who can make shots like that. It just works for them. The biggest one was The biggest IU one was Jordan Hulls with that side saddle shot. You would never teach that to a young kid playing basketball, but Jordan Hulls, it worked perfectly for him. Allen Iverson was a guy who had a really weird shot, but it worked for him. I mean, there are examples. It's really a rare, unique thing when guys have an alternate version of shooting and it works for them. And Damis does that. I mean, he has a very odd shot and it goes in. And, the key is just not rushing it. And the key is being set when he shoots and all those things, which sometimes we saw last year and we've seen early this year that he just kind of hurries himself and the ball doesn't go in. But when he's in rhythm and when he's shooting and has time to do it, he's making shots. And tonight, what he did that impressed me was in 16 minutes, he scored 14 points, got 6 rebounds, 6 of 9 from the field. And none of his shots were really forced. He was, playing with, within himself and grabbing rebounds and putting a shot back up instead of, just firing threes or anything like that. So he came by those points honestly. It wasn't a guy forcing things. And that was what impressed me the most. And defensively, he moved his feet a lot better tonight. And I don't know if that's the opponent or what, but they did not take advantage. I texted you guys, I think it was 2 games ago, that if I was an offense, I would just target Damis on every single possession because he doesn't move his feet well. And he's not quick and all those things. I would just go at him every time, make him guard somebody. And tonight, Troy did not take advantage of that at all. And in some cases where they did go at him, he looked pretty good. So kudos to Damis, a guy who I've been skeptical of, and I thought he played a great game tonight. I thought he was smart with the ball, and I thought he let his opportunities come to him, and he didn't, guys can get into a rhythm when they're 3-point shooters and when they're shooters like that, where every time they touch the ball, they just want to hurl it at the basket. And he did not do that tonight. He took shots when they were there and when they were open and when he had the opportunity and was very efficient with it. So kudos to him. I thought this was his best game so far easily.
Well, and I think he's a guy that if we continue to see the post players be able to pass as well, if he can relocate smartly on the perimeter and be able to continue to knock down open shots, I mean, that's what he's there for. And to your point, I thought he played better defensively, but he's still going to give up some baskets on that end.
For sure.
And he has to be able to score. But if he can play the way he did tonight, create additional opportunities through offensive rebounds and just playing really hard and playing smart on the offensive end, moving without the ball well, he can be a real asset. And I think you look at the depth of this year's team, and he's a perfect example of that, of a guy who you weren't quite sure where he was going to fit in. And if he can continue to, build on a performance like this, and this is what he's able to do in spurts, it becomes really, really beneficial for everybody.
Look, it's at some point you're going to need a guy in a Big Ten game to come off the bench and get hot and get you 15 and a half, and that's, he has the upside ability to do that. The question is, does he keep working on the rest of his game and round it out? Because he could be a weapon for this team if he's smart about the way he plays, if he can move his feet, because it doesn't matter how many points you score if you give up the same amount on the other end. It's about developing the rest of his game. But you're right. I thought that tonight was better, but there's a lot of work to do. So this isn't like Damis is a finished product. This is awesome. It's a hugely encouraging performance, though. I will say that.
Yeah, the other moment I wanted to hit was actually on the halftime show on the Big Ten Network, and people may have actually missed that because they either turned over to watch a football game or do something else. But Robbie Hummel, as they were going through some of the highlights from the first half, made a comment about how the chemistry on this year's team just seemed a lot better, and he attributed some of the success that they had in the first half, and I don't know that he went so far as to say so far this season was related to what appeared to him to be improved chemistry on the team. I'm just kind of curious to get your thoughts, Ryan, as to how much stock you put into something like that. I don't know what he knows or doesn't know to make him say that. I do think you can see things on the court that definitely the overall like kind of movement and flow offensively suggests I don't know if that's chemistry or just being less reliant on a couple guys. You think there's validity to that argument based on what you know
is
or
that
have
these
seen?
guys, if the suggestion is, well, these guys like each other more. Well, a lot of these guys have just played together for a while. They might just like each other more and know each other better. And these are all the types of guys that Archie Miller wanted to recruit, because look at who's there. And these are his recruiting classes. These are his guys that are playing. And when you're a coaching staff, you're looking for a certain personality as much as you're looking for a certain type of talent. You want to bring guys in who fit mentally with what you're doing as well as physically. And so, yeah, you're seeing guys who you're seeing guys share the ball more. I mean, there's just the times where, like you said about you pointed out the Trayce Jackson-Davis, like interior pass earlier that was really pretty to get Trayce a layup I think it was a layup, not a dunk, but whatever. He got points on the interior. Trayce Thompson could have easily gone up with that ball, but he saw the other guy maybe a little, percentage wise had about a 10% better chance of making his shot. He gives it up. And these guys are willing to move the ball and willing to share the ball, and they're helping each other defensively, moving well. All of that does come down to a level of chemistry. I don't know if there were jerks on the team before and they didn't like playing together or anything like that, or if it's just guys being around each other, and spending more time together and maybe having an understanding with each other on and off the court. And, it sounds really cheesy, but a brotherhood kind of develops when you're spending that much time with somebody. And these guys have all played together for a while now. And it's guys staying in the program for a while and all that. And also I'm sure having, leaders like Devontae Green, who's apparently taken a huge leadership role on this team. Joey Brunk has come in and taken a leadership role. Al Durham has taken a leadership role. Deron Davis has taken a leadership role. All of those guys being leaders helps, foster that kind of chemistry, because they want to win and they're going to down the line tell guys, to get along with each other and to share the ball. And they're going to foster those type of commitment things to each other where you're all fighting. It's supposed to be a team moving together, not a bunch of individual guys individually pushing things. It's supposed to all work together. And so you're seeing that more and more. I mean, you look at the depth on this team and you look at every game where it seems like 4 or 5, 6 guys in double figures. I mean, that's everybody chipping in. You look at tonight, everybody who played extended minutes scored. I mean, it's just you're getting contributions from everybody. And so I think that there's something to that. I don't know what the cause is specifically, but this is the way it's supposed to be in basketball, is they're going to have guys around for a long time who help foster that chemistry and help push guys to sort of accept certain things and play a certain way.
Yeah, I definitely think I think the balance is part of it. There were definitely a number of, you mentioned that play with Race. I think there was a number of times when I felt like guys had chances to take tougher shots and they gave it to a teammate for a better shot.
Yep.
And I think just,
you see it on breakaways this year too. Last year was a lot of guys just going all the way by themselves. And now you're seeing guys find the open man and move the ball. And I feel like the fast break offense is way better because it's not just guys trying to go up against 3 guys. It's they're moving it.
Yeah, I think that there's a level of unselfishness and sharing the ball. And I think some of that comes from not really having a clear go-to guy. And as you said, you had 4 guys in double figures in the first half alone that ended up being that way for the game. But everybody who played minutes, as you said, contributed. So, yeah, I don't know if it's, mistaking chemistry for balance or unselfishness or whatever the case may be. So again, I think it's hard to attribute all of what you see to chemistry, but certainly a lot of things.
Yeah, if you're not in that locker room,
58 points in the first half. So
yeah, if you're not in the locker room, it's hard to know exactly what's going on, obviously, but everything has looked so positive this year. It's just, I know that, of course, like considering the opponents and all that, but there's just something about the way they're playing that just seems more together.
Yep. All right, well, let's go inside the numbers on this 100-62 victory. We touched on a handful of these already. Free throw shooting, IU gets to the line 30 times again, which continues to be a strength. They were 21 of 30, so 70% on the game, just 8 of 15 in the second half. So that number did dip a little bit. But again, I think whether it's how the games are being officiated, because IU was in the double bonus, I think within 8 minutes of the game starting. Some of that is aggressiveness. Some of that is ticky-tack fouls and taking advantage of how the game's being called to a certain extent. But, we've seen that be a point of emphasis for this team. I think that continues to be a positive. Total of 21 assists compared to 12 turnovers on the night, 10 assists to 7 turnovers in the second half. So that number was even a little bit better in the first half. So I think that continues to be a good number. IU shot 39% from 3 and overall shot almost 54% from the floor. So I think a game where not a whole lot didn't go well statistically on the offensive end. You mentioned the rebounding numbers and all those kinds of things.
Crazy. 51-38. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was big. Bench points had 33 points off the bench, which continues to be a positive. 18 second chance points. Mentioned the points off of turnovers earlier. We hit on some of the defensive numbers. I don't know, Ryan, as you look down the box score, any big ones that we haven't hit so far that stood out to you from a individual or team standpoint?
Well, the first one is it wasn't a blowout on the free throw line. In fact, Troy shot one more free throw than IU did. A lot of that because of some late fouling. But they shot 31 free throws. So this wasn't like Indiana just won because they went to the free throw line more, which is the way you felt about, the North Alabama game. Felt like they really took advantage of the free throw line and kind of won that way. I would say the fact that they held, we've talked about it. They held Troy to 5 of 25 from three. That's 20%. They held them overall from the field, 20 of 63 for 31%. I mean, I don't care who you're playing. That's good defense. You're showing up and you're playing defense at that point. Excuse me. Also 21 assists was a big one for me. 21 assists on 35 field goals is a good number. Only 12 turnovers, 5 in the first half. I mean, the first half to me in these games is where you really take turnovers seriously, because sometimes they wind up being a blowout in the second half and guys throw the ball all around the gym. That 5 turnovers in the first half helped them get off to a really good start. They really didn't, throw the ball all over the gym. They knew what they were doing, and they found the right people open in the right situations. And then, I think the rebounding battle was absolutely huge for IU to go for 51 and then get 15 offensive rebounds was another big thing. And Archie, I saw in one of the post-game quotes, he said that, offensive rebounding is huge because it breaks the back of the defense. They've stopped you, and then you get another chance. And that is demoralizing. If you've ever played basketball, it's the worst feeling in the world, where you have a good defensive possession, make them take a bad shot, and then they get the rebound and get to start all over again. So that's real positive, and I think that's something they can continue to build on. The rebounding numbers have been great this year for IU.
Yeah, the one individual that I wanted to talk about was Al Durham. He was the fourth double-digit scorer, and the one that we haven't really touched on too much so far. He ends
kind of quietly, right?
Yeah, 17 points to somewhat quiet. 17 points. He was 3 of 4 from 3, hit all 4 of his free throws, 4 assists, a couple turnovers, had another nice block, led the team in plus minus at plus 29 based on the box score that I'm looking at. I think that you start to see, I think there's going to be a lot of adjustment period for him as guys start to get healthy and roles start to get sorted out. I think it was another adjustment for him tonight with Rob being out. He assumed a bit more of a primary ball handling role. Devontae comes back and, is playing a little bit off the ball. So I think, Al's being asked to wear a lot of different hats so far through the preseason game and the four non-conference games. But I thought overall, kind of a quiet, if you can have a quiet 17 points, I thought his definitely fell into that category. Anything stand out to you from Al during the game?
He's just super confident when he steps into a shot. He really is this year, more than last year. I mean, it's enormous, the difference when he steps into an outside shot this year. 3 of 4 on the night from 3. All of them look like good shots. I think he kind of forced the one he missed, but it was still acceptable given his track record of shooting so far this year. Hit all 4 of his free throws is going to be another thing that's going to be huge if he's going to be handling the ball, if he's going to be on the perimeter. Last year, you're almost worried when anybody got fouled and went to the line. Who's the guy who's going to have the ball in their hands late to shoot a free throw? Well, Durham, Devontae Green, Rob Finney, they can all shoot free throws this year, it seems. Devontae could last year, so I'm just assuming that's going to carry over to this year. But then 5 of 10 from the field, I thought sometimes when Al went into the paint and drove, he kind of forced it a little bit, as opposed to maybe finding a teammate or looking to back it out and do something with the ball. But again, he 4 assists. He had a beautiful pass to Joey Bronk, who had a layup and got fouled for an and one, which was really nice. It also looks like Al's having fun. It looks like he is really just enjoying playing basketball and being on the floor. And I felt like last year at times, all of the perimeter guys looked like they took way too much onto themselves and were really forcing it. It feels like this year guys are playing loose and they're having fun. And again, might be that there's no pressure against these early season opponents, but it just feels like a general vibe on the team, and Al is showing it as much as anybody, just that he's out there and he's attacking and having fun and stepping into shots and playing defense and his off ball defense needs some work. He gets lost every once in a while, but on ball I feel like he's being super aggressive and super locked in defensively. So really just a nice all-around game. And the fact that, again, he had 17 points tonight. If you would ask me, I would have been like, maybe 10 for Al tonight. He didn't, it wasn't a game that he dominated, but he chipped in 17 points, 4 assists, 2 rebounds, a block shot that was really nice on a recovery. And again, led in plus minus, as you said, with plus 29. That was just a really nice night for him that, didn't seem like it had to be all that huge.
Yeah, just overall really good balance for IU. As I was looking at the KenPom, possessions used numbers, and there's just a ton of guys, nobody more than 24. And of the guys who played most of the minutes, almost everybody was somewhere in a, usage rate of between 19 and 24. So really balanced effort.
Yeah.
A lot of guys got playing time. Nobody played more than 28 minutes. And again, of the core guys, Joey Brunk was the only one to play less than 15. So, good balanced effort, got a lot of guys in there. Perhaps the biggest number that everybody may calm some of the fears about IU's defense is 0.81 points per possession over the course of the game tonight. So a positive step in that direction for that. It just becomes a matter of sustaining that level of defensive intensity as we move forward with the rest of the non-conference. But coming up on the assembly call, we're going to hand out our game balls and hit any lingering storylines, and we'll look ahead to IU's next opponent. Then it's time for last call. That's all next here on the assembly call. Stick with us.
This is Nick Zeisloff. I never miss an open three, and I never miss an episode of the Assembly Call.
You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Catch us live immediately following every IU basketball game, plus every Thursday night at our website, assemblycall.com. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for our free IU Hoops email newsletter. Over 7,000 of your fellow IU fans have already subscribed. You can also text IU to 66866 to subscribe to the newsletter. That's IU to 66866. I'm Andy Bottoms here with Ryan Phillips, and we are breaking down IU's 100-62 win over Troy. And now it's time for game balls. Hopefully we will not split the vote here, but I'll let you monitor the chat mob. Should we need to go to them to break the tie? But I'll let you go first. Game ball for tonight's game.
I got to go with Trayce Jackson-Davis, 17 points, 14 rebounds, an assist, only 2 turnovers and a block, and 2 steals. He was 6 of 6 from the field, 5 of 9 for the free throw line. Missed a couple free throws in a row. We discussed that. I just think he got into a bad rhythm there. But I just thought on both ends of the floor was super active. The 14 rebounds are huge. 4 of them offensive. I just felt that he was the guy who set the tone early and kept it going. You easily could say Justin Smith because he played such an efficient, consistent game. But I got to go with Jackson-Davis because I think that his ability to control the game early was what set the tone and got IU off on the right foot for this blowout. And I just thought that we've talked about it, I thought he and Race Thompson really just controlled the paint early and then early in the second half as well. And again, he had the highlight big plays you expect from the 5-star. That breakaway, tomahawk dunk was awesome. And everything he does, you're starting to see a guy emerge who's going to be one of the best freshmen in the country. Maybe not as far as on draft boards or whatever, but just his performance and his ability is going to be off the charts. And I think that he proved tonight again why he was such a highly touted recruit. And to in 25 minutes be plus 27 is crazy, and he just did it again, and so I just don't even I can see an argument for Justin Smith, but I just think that Trayce was the guy tonight.
Yeah, I would agree. I'll give mine to Trayce as well. We had not yet mentioned that kind of windmill dunk that he had going down
sweetness
off of that was a really nice play, and just he did a good job making passes out
off
of
of
the post,
Jerome Davis
off of the post. Yeah,
off of Jerome Davis steal of all things too.
Anytime you can get those two out pressuring the ball near half court, you have to, right? But it was Yeah, I mean, a big play, the kind of highlight reel play that we expect from him. Had the other one that I think it was him, where the one that Devontae either shot or passed it off the backboard. That was Trayce that was the recipient of that, right?
Yeah,
Or was that? I think that was him
that
and
was
not
Trayce.
Justin.
Yeah, that was Trayce.
So yeah, a couple, as you said, highlight reel type plays. But I just think his overall intensity level, he seems to be a guy that brings it pretty much every night. And I feel like one of the things that when he would get interviewed about coming to IU and talking about some of the struggles in last year's team, where he just talked about, some of that emotion and intensity that he would bring. And I think he's lived up to every bit of that so far. A really solid double-double and another really good game for him. So, yeah, Justin, certainly honorable mention given how well he played. And those to me were the two that really stood out from the game tonight. So that gives Trayce.
They both blew up early too, to start things on the right foot, I think. And that was big and a huge key tonight.
Yep, I would agree. So it's Trayce's third game ball. So he's dominating the game balls just as he has the gold jersey, it sounds like. So that's a positive when a freshman is having that kind of impact. The only rotation guys that we really haven't touched on too much would be Armand Franklin, who ended the game with 6 points. Brunk had 5. Deron Davis had 2, and Jerome Hunter had 4. Don't think we need to get into all of those guys specifically, but I don't know, Ryan, if any of them stood out to you, good or bad, for one reason or another.
Yeah, I thought Jerome Hunter forced things offensively tonight. I really thought he was just taking shots, stick shots, and not really getting the best looks that he could. And I get it. He's been out for a long time, and he wants to show that every time he does something, it's not a fluke, and he wants to sort of build on it. And I thought tonight was one of those games that's going to be he's going to have to take a deep breath after and realize, hey, you've been out for a year. You're going to have some stinkers of games. And tonight was definitely one. He had 5 fouls. He fouled out. And I just felt like I actually thought he played better defensively tonight, but offensively it felt like he was trying to force things and try and get on the board. And he missed, I think, his first 3 shots were just, and one of them was a long air ball. And again, I just think that things are going to come for Jerome Hunter, and he's going to have a good season, I think. But he also needs to understand when things aren't going well, the idea shouldn't be to continue to force things. It should be to simplify and maybe find easier baskets. If you really want to score, get in the post. You've done it before, or drive and try and get in the middle. And if guys suck over to you, pass the ball, so I just think that it's a step back. It's a time for him to step back a little, understand you're going to have a rough game here and there, but I thought that he was the one that stood out as really having a tough night. And but I don't think it's anything that'll linger. I think it's the fact that, again, he's 4th game after sitting out an entire year. You're going to have your rough patches.
Yeah, the other two that I'd hit would be the combination of Joey Brunk and Deron Davis. They didn't have a ton of points, but they did have 6 assists between them, and I think that underscores some of what we had talked about earlier with how well the big guys are passing the ball out of the post. To the points that you made earlier, I struggle to watch other lineups that don't contain those guys and then watch lineups with them on the floor and say, hey, I need to see more of this and less of the other. But I do think, if they are going to play them, they have to, you have to play through them in some sense, because if you're going to put a big guy out there who is going to get put in ball screens pretty much every time on the defensive end, you really have to, force feed them offensively to a certain extent. And if you're going to do that, they need to be able to pass out of, trouble in the post. And tonight was a good example of them being able to do that. So a positive development for those guys, even as everybody's still trying to sort out, what lineups look like with and without them and where that all shakes out. But, otherwise, coming up next for us from an assembly call standpoint, we've got Banner Monday coming up here in a couple days with Mike DeCourcy and Ryan also answering questions. So we'll kind of see what shakes out with the Big Ten after the weekend. Get Mike's opinion on where IU sits in the pecking order, and then the next game for the Hoosiers is Wednesday against Princeton at home. Princeton currently 0-3 on the season, and they played last Wednesday. Don't play again until they play IU. They've lost at Duquesne, at San Francisco, and to Lafayette at home. So a team picked kind of around the middle of the Ivy League that I think maybe at certain points in the offseason thought maybe this would be one of the better teams that IU will play in the non-conference. I don't think the results would suggest that that's true. It's really Louisiana Tech, I think, is the one, if any, to look at as we head through the rest of November. From a Ken Palm standpoint, defensively, Princeton has really struggled defending the three. They're 345th in three-point defense, and effective field goal defense, as a result, as you might suspect, is pretty poor. And overall, they rank outside of the top 200 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. So not a lot of highlight, not a lot of green on the Ken Palm page for Princeton. If those who reference that frequently know that that's not necessarily a great thing.
And I've mentioned this before, but there is a freshman on that team who went to my alma mater, my high school. So it'll be interesting for me to watch him. He led them to a state title last year. So I hope the best for his career. Clearly it's not going well yet, but good luck.
So if anything, watch for that, folks.
Watch for that. See what he does.
I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, if you need
the second, his first name is Ryan. It's the second best Ryan turned out by La Jolla Country Day.
Nice. Maybe tune in next time. You'll find out who the first was. All right. So with that, I think we're ready for last call, unless there's anything else you wanted to hit, which I will let you do in your last call. So wrap us up here. Thoughts on a 38-point IU victory?
This is what games like this are supposed to look like. You play an inferior opponent and you're a good team. You're supposed to blow them out. And for a long time, it felt like when Indiana had these games, it was a struggle, or it was we were white knuckling it, or it just, there were so many disappointments in the game that it didn't feel like a big win. This felt like a big win. It felt like this is a team coming together. Again, I know the opponents aren't that great, but this team needed a chance to really develop itself. A lot of young guys, a lot of guys, who didn't play much last year, finally getting an opportunity to shine and really showing up, and they're doing what they're supposed to do. And there's value in that. There's value in accomplishing the task you're supposed to accomplish on a basketball floor, regardless of who the opponent is. And I thought the rebounding, the interior play, hitting 39% of your threes, 70% of your free throws, things like that, you can take value in. And I thought the defense was really good as well. So I just thought that Indiana did everything it was supposed to do. And quite frankly, over the last 5-6 years, they haven't always done that. So it's nice to see. And it may seem like a little thing, but it's nice to see when this team comes through and does what it's supposed to do.
Yep. Before my last call, just a quick reminder that because you're an Assembly Call listener, you get 20% off of your entire order over at homefieldapparel.com with the promo code Assembly20. So if you want a great deal on the most comfortable and unique IU apparel that you'll find anywhere, go to homefieldapparel.com and use the promo code Assembly20 for 20% off your entire order. So a couple of things I wanted to hit off the top that are tangentially related to the game. First, saw a lot of cool footage from the Hoosier Hysterics event that was put on today. Everybody
awesome
really
job
talked
by those
about
guys,
how well Ward and Eric did at getting all that together. I'm sure, as basically everybody knows right now, by now, that Bob Knight stopped at the event and talked a bit toward the end, and a lot of former players there. Looked like a really cool event, and one that was really well done. Saw nothing but positives and people talking about how it exceeded their expectations. So kudos to those guys for a cool event, and hopefully a lot of our listeners got to spend some time there as well. Saw a good decent IU football performance, a little bit disappointing in some ways. It seemed like people headed over to the volleyball game and then to IU, and then to Assembly Hall for the basketball game. Soccer team plays for the Big Ten championship tomorrow. So an exciting weekend of IU sports for sure. And the second, just a shout out to our friend Tax Megan. Her husband has had some medical issues this week, and sounds like he's home now and on the mend. So shout out to Willis for hopefully the game provided a little bit of healing and a good distraction over the course of the evening for him. And for me, from a last call standpoint, I really think unfortunately, we do the show after the entirety of the game. I think if we did it after the first 24 minutes, it might have been an even more excited. Maybe it'd also been much earlier, and potentially would not have had technical issues to start. But be that as it may, I just thought, those first 24 minutes were probably the best that we've seen this team play over the beginning of the season. And it particularly, as I mentioned in the opening, was really impressed with how they came out of the locker room and really kept up that intensity. Things kind of derailed from there, as 40-point games often do. But I really thought, on the heels of some question marks, at least warning signs, whatever you want to say, over the course of the last couple games defensively. Thought the effort level, just attention to detail, was pretty good for the most part on the defensive end, and they really held the team that came in shooting really well from 3-point range to 5 for 25 over the course of the game. And so that to me is a positive sign for this team. You continue to see the balance, and I think that's something that's going to be there throughout the year for IU. They've just got a lot of guys that can come in and contribute. Hopefully keep the minute count down at least through these non-conference games, and then we'll have to figure out how those minutes shake out once the competition level ratchets up. But again, a game where a lot of guys were able to come in and contribute, and a good bounce back spot for Justin Smith after a little bit more of a rough game that I think had people raise some questions about him. So overall, a really positive performance for IU. 38-point victory, scored 100 points for the first time on the season, and as we said earlier, got a lot of guys involved, got a lot of guys playing time, and really to a man, everybody contributed. So that to me is the sign of a good IU game, and we'll see if they can follow that up on Wednesday against Princeton and go on from there. But for now, that will do it for this edition of the Assembly Call. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/assemblycall. And don't forget to go to assemblycall.com or text IU to 66866 to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to longtime listener Bob Thompson, who produced much of the music you hear on the show. And thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU hoops with you again on Banner Monday and after the Princeton game on Wednesday. Until then, keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim, and go Hoosiers.
Thank everybody for coming out.
All right, I got to get out of here, folks. Thank you.
All right. I think we managed to survive. We did it. We did it, buddy. We made it.
Yeah, I guess it was just tightening your mic cord. Or is that what
I had unplugged and replugged stuff back in repeatedly, so I don't really I'm honestly not sure. I truly have no idea what I did that
yeah, somebody suggested tightening your mic cord, and then I don't know if you did that, but then afterwards it worked really well. So all worked fine.
I don't know. I unplugged a bunch of stuff and plugged it back in for like the 5th and 6th time. So maybe, maybe that did it. Who knows?
Works well. All right. Hey, it worked.
All right, cool. All right. Thanks,
Go
man.
Get some
Thanks,
sleep.
everybody.
It's late there.
It is late. I have to send Jared the file so he can actually do the post the podcast. So I'll do that, and then I will do that. So, all right, cool. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks everybody for
later, guys.
Joining us, and we'll talk to everybody next week.